And we can go ahead and start taking some questions. If anybody wants to just drop their question into the assembly chat, then Adam and I can answer on voice here. We're still linking people in Discord, apparently. For what? Oh, it should be just here. I'll get it. I'll just paste it in Discord. It's slightly delayed from what's going on in world, but it's still a good place for people to be able to listen to it. So are people hearing us in world? I'm not sure if we can be heard in world at the moment. Well, that's good. At least somebody's hearing us. Yeah.
I'm seeing Joshua. You're doing in-world voice and on the Skype call as well.
Yes, I'm on
just
both.
For reference, people, we're just doing this because this Twitch seems to require it.
Yeah, the Paul, who's streaming to Twitch for us, can't stream the in-world voice directly to Twitch, so we're actually on both two calls simultaneously here to make this happen. Does anyone have any questions that we can start with? We have some more people joining us. Yeah, apologies for missing last week's town hall. We had a bit of a scheduling snafu where we ended up with 3 things all happening at the same time on the same day. And unfortunately, the town hall had to be postponed to this week. But we're going to try and do regular town halls every month from now on here in the assembly in order to answer any questions anybody may have. Come as you are, show up, ask whatever you feel like you need to ask. Let's see. Well, I guess while we're waiting for some questions to come in here, we do have some really. We do have some cool stuff coming up. We are working on implementing some new features for the pattern system for clothing, so that you can offer more options offer more options for ways for people to customize clothing that they've purchased. That's something we want to look at doing in the future for other things besides clothing as well. We've got a heavy focus this week on performance and crash fixing. We've identified a number of major ongoing sources of low frame rate that we are fixing now. We've got some test viewers that are coming out today. So we hopefully have isolated some of those problems and should see a significant performance improvement going forward for various issues, including avatar loading with lots of avatars in the scene. We've also some crash fixes.
I'm going to butt in there because we actually got a couple of cool things that we've been working on that I think actually are going to have some big improvements in terms of viewer performance. So the first one is that I think, fingers crossed, everyone cross your fingers, we have found and fixed the bug that was affecting a couple of users, Dixie, Spiral, and others, causing a big freeze when avatars log in. We think that's now being whacked as of today. Fingers crossed, as I said. So that's one thing we've got coming down the pipeline that's a bit of a long-standing issue. We have another thing coming down the pipe, which is actually coming off our mobile viewers. So last week, we got our mobile viewers up to 60 frames a second.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting day because the day before I was saying, all right, look, if we can get to 20 frames a second, that's a usable experience. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And then a day later, we ended up at 60. I am happy about that. But one of the things we've done with our mobile viewers is we've actually implemented dynamic resolution scaling. And in English, that means that we can skip pixels on the screen. So we might only render half the pixels and then we sort of fill in the remainder. And that means that people who've got particularly weak graphics cards, like those in laptops and things, you can dial down the actual effective resolution, knock it down by about a third. It's not too visible, but it means that the frame rate is basically doubled. It's for every knock down by a third, you will double your frame rate, which means that people who are accessing on really low-end devices, it means you can get yourself a smooth 60 frames a second by dialing that down a little bit. So that's a new option. It also means you can dial up the other settings to compensate, so you can have nicer and better lighting just in a smaller resolution. We also have some other improvements. Sorry?
That's going to be a really great feature. I know it's the performance on especially very low-end machines has been an ongoing concern for a number of not just our main grid users, but our white label grid users. So it's a very exciting option to be able to take to them and be like, hey, we have an effective solution for you.
Yeah, there is some other features coming down as well. We've because of these mobile viewers, we've really had to clamp down on a lot of redundant rendering. So there is a whole host of other optimizations coming down the pipeline. There's two other improvements we're doing. First is that we are knocking down the shader sizes. And if you can hear a whining puppy, that is because there is a whining puppy outside my office who will be quiet or not. So we have some smaller shaders coming down the pipeline. If you're using the standard shader, that's currently adding at least a couple hundred kilobytes to every asset you make. With these new shaders, that will be reduced to 0. It also means your items will process faster too. We expect to knock probably about 2-3 minutes off processing for most items, which is also a nice little extra benefit. And it's not just performance improvements. We've also got some quality improvements in terms of lighting. One of the cool things that's gone into our 2B series of test viewers is this new voxel GI system that does it does screen space ray tracing, and it's fast enough that it works on most graphics cards. You don't need to actually have bought a full-on heavy graphics card for this to work, like an NVIDIA RTX. It works on everything off the shelf, but it gives you nice bounced lighting, so that's coming down the pipeline. And we are doing some more heavy investigations now of Unity's new SRP systems. We've had to do a bit of work over the last few weeks just making sure that we've got a path forward there. So that's something we'll be talking about once we've got the 2B viewers out. I did see one question, and this is one I'm going to answer before I have to disappear, because unfortunately I have another call at 1:30, but Joshua's going to stick around. One of the other things was the 2019 avatars. So the question is, when are we going to actually get those implemented? And the short answer is we want to get the 2B viewers out first. The good news is we've actually got the 2019 avatars now. We've got the translation between the old and the new. That's mostly working. It's not 100% yet, but it's mostly there. That one is what we're using in the client. We just need to do a bit more improvement around some of the rigging changes before we're confident releasing that. For users, that'll be expressed as a slider in the client. We will have a slider going between the 2017 and the 2019. If you've had a look at both models, you will notice the proportions have changed. The principal proportion change is the length of the spine. The spine has become a little bit longer in the newer models, which means they're a little bit more proportionally accurate. And we've made a couple of changes as well to just the general proportions. We do have an experimental way of you right now being able to use the 2019 avatars in the editor pack, but I will caution that it is experimental, so there is going to be a variance in the quality of your results. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Joshua.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at another question coming in here from Reds88 about the clothing and pattern upgrades that we're doing. Yeah, that's basically our goal. Is you will be able to do things like buy a shirt and then individually customize parts of it without having to rebuy the same shirt. So you might buy a red shirt, and then it might have like cuff options where you can have white or black or red cuffs to go with it, or it might have button options where you can have black or silver or gold buttons. And you can change those things without having to go buy specifically a red shirt with gold buttons and black cuffs, because that just gets to be way too much work for the creators to be able to do. They have to make every possible variation. And that goes crazy quickly. If you've got 3 items and each one has 5 options, then the creator has to make 125 different pattern variations to sell on the store, and that's just crazy unsustainable. So that is what we're working on to fix right now. Does anybody else have any questions here? We are something that's exciting about the mobile viewer updates we've been doing. Also, I was thinking while Adam was talking there is since we can get such really high solid frame rates out of the mobile viewer now, this has some really solid implications for the use of VR in the future. Especially we would like to get Sinespace running on more kinds of VR hardware in the future, including the Oculus Quest, which is a standalone Android-based device that you don't have to tether to a computer. So that's going to be exciting for people who are interested in VR. Do we have any more questions coming in? Let's see, what else do we have going on right now? We are working on a lot of stuff in the background. We're really excited to show you some of it soon. We want to do some updates to our modular vehicle system. There's some really cool stuff coming in that to make it more usable and more fun to use our vehicles. We'd like to add some new types of vehicles in the future.
One of the ones that we haven't talked about much since the keynote last year was the mainland system 2. We're just pending one bug fix before we release that one. The bug has been a bit tenacious. It's taken a month to try and find the cause of that one. So we've been wondering why the region server's been bouncing up and down on the preview grid. It's actually the hunt for the bug there. But once that's up and running, we're going to launch a series of mainlands. We're going to start with our own one, and then we're going to let you make your own. And that also brings together the new voxel terrain system and a host of other things as well, including a brand new parceling system. Parceling system has some pretty nifty features built in, including things like rentals and subletting and things like that can be done from the owner of the region, which means that we can sort of begin to have large scale environments. Morphing aspect. Morphs are available right now. To answer your question, there is a process for them. I have written these documentation docs. Actually, I finally wrote some docs, didn't I? I did, in fact, write documentation, which I asked to go onto the wiki, which I bet is on the wiki now.
Is that in the live viewer, or is that in the pending viewer?
Oh, morphs are in the live viewer. They're available right now. They are in the live viewer. They've been the Daz shapes are actually using them pretty extensively, and there's a few other people who have begun making them. Let's look for morph on the wiki. I'll see if we can find the links. No, but there is a. I did write up a Word document that if someone from staff is kind enough to share, and also please do get that onto the wiki. You can see the process. The basic steps for creating morph is you basically create a new blend shape /shape key / whatever your 3D program calls it. Morph targets, the other name that sometimes get referred to. You basically make a new one of those on our own base avatar. You can then bake that into a particular format that we support, and when you upload it, that thing gets exposed as a slider inside the viewer. So that one's available right now.
Yeah, that's a really cool feature. It's something that's important to us because it means that everybody can maintain a unified clothing pipeline. They don't have to make different kinds of clothing to fit different avatars. Everything just fits. If it's a morph, it just adjusts the base avatar, and all of the clothing adjusts with it, and you don't have to do anything extra for it. We've also got some really cool changes in the 2B viewer, which I don't think have made it to the live viewer yet. In terms of performance, I know chat performance has been an ongoing pain.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, with lots and lots of chat messages, especially the more chat messages and the more rapidly they come in, it leads to a lot of frame dropping, a lot of lag basically in the viewer as a result of chat coming in, and we've solved that in the 2B viewer, which is really, really exciting for a lot of our projects, and just general usability of the platform.
There's actually the chat's not the only thing that's got the benefits. We've changed the way the UI system works. We've had to sort of override how Unity's UI works to get it to perform better, but that is affecting a whole host of things. I think so far we've upgraded inventory, shop, the new room inspector has got a new placement system that's coming down the pipe. There's a few other things, but chat is probably the one that everyone's going to benefit from the most.
Yeah, because everybody's got chat open all the time, and that was a major source of lag for everybody. So we're really happy about that going away.
Yeah,
and then we've also got a bunch of other improvements to the shop coming up. We're really aiming to increase the usability of the shop, not just in its ability to find what you're looking for, but also to give us some really cool new opportunities for promoting stuff that's especially exceptional stuff in the store, featured sellers and featured types of content, and it's going to really be a much nicer experience for everybody, and hopefully showcase all of the content that we have. We have so much content, but I feel like the existing store doesn't do a good job of making clear everything that we have available to offer to everybody. And the upcoming, we're also, as Adam said, we're working on the room editor. It works right now, but it's a little bit intimidating for anybody who's not already a Unity developer. And we would really like it to be more user-friendly and easier to jump in, a lower bar for people getting in and using that. So we're doing a lot of work on cleaning up and restructuring the way the room editor works. And also, I think we've got those new placement tools coming in, Adam, that you did. Those are not in the live viewer, right?
They're not in the live ones yet, but they will be soon. There's a whole host of new tools there. So just just before I quickly duck off, and god damn dog, seriously, there's two questions
Why
here
I have cats
to answer before I have to vanish in 3 minutes. First one is the ability for clothing for costume avatars. Now, this one's tricky for us because we really, really, really don't want to get to a situation where there is multiple humans in the character system that are all competing with each other. So we have a strong preference towards people doing humanoid characters through the new morph system. And that's a strategic choice, but it's also to do with the fact that we want users to be able to use what they buy with everything they buy. So if you buy a shirt, it should be usable on every outfit you've got, rather than just being for this particular costume. So for that reason, we haven't implemented clothing in costumes. I think that's probably going to stay the way. I don't think we're going to make a change on that one, just because it opens up too many problems where eventually you end up with competing humanoids and stuff only works for half the inventory, and the user experience kind of sucks. So for that reason, we haven't done that. The other question I got is hair and cloth physics, getting it documented. Now, this is something we do need to do. Unfortunately, I don't feel 100% confident enough to myself. I can give you the basics on how this stuff should work, but I have not done enough experimentation here. So maybe this is something we need to get someone from our side doing a lot more experimentation on cloth physics, just so that you can get good results on your own clothing, because we would love to see more cloth physics content. But obviously the tricks on how to do it requires right now a lot of trial and error learning in order to get up and running. So I'm probably going to duck out myself right now, and I'm going to leave you in Joshua's hands for the rest of the conversation. But it was good seeing everyone, and I hope to make as many of these as I can. But these are Joshua's office hours, and I'll let you let you go back to running it.
Yep, no problem. And we're absolutely happy to have you anytime you can. Anytime you can make it in. Adam is insanely busy all the time. We all are at this point, but hopefully that will settle out a bit after the next couple of months. But yeah, any questions that you have, we want to have this every month. So somebody will be here. I will probably be here for all of them. Adam will drop in as he can. So yeah, and any questions that for whatever reason that I can't answer, then I will get answers for you from the appropriate people, and we'll make them available either on a follow-up town hall, or we can post them on Discord or wherever seems appropriate to reach people. Yeah, so Michelle is helping me aggregate questions here. So from various sources, I'm trying to keep track of the various chat sources here. Yeah, yeah. Michelle's copying and pasting from all over into one place so I can see them, because I'm kind of scattered around here right now. But to go back to some of that room editor stuff that we're working on, Adam was hard at work on some really cool new placement tools, really with a heavy focus on, we're going to have all of this voxel terrain, large swaths of land, the ability to terraform that, and then we need a way to put stuff on it, because land by itself is great, but without the trees and the grass and the rocks and the roads and all of that, it doesn't really serve a lot of purpose. So we've got some really cool new tools that let you to quickly scatter landscaping pieces around in a very organic fashion on terrain. You can even, and it can drop anything, not just landscaping stuff. You can just like quickly spread out buildings over an area, or a pile up of cars if you want to, whatever makes sense at the time. Adding a search bar to the store window at the top, not under specific categories. Yeah, that is a good idea. We really should be able to search the entire store all at once and just find anything that comes up. That is something we can look at. I don't know if that's currently in the plan for the store revamp, but if it's not, then it's probably not a terribly difficult thing to add. We also do have, the store has a shopping cart system now, which I don't think is on the live viewer. Common request, being able to add multiple things to your cart and then check out all at once. That is now a feature of the new store. So hopefully that will make the shopping experience less frustrating for everyone. Do we have any questions here that I can answer, Michelle? That works too. I think we have really the 2B viewer has been a total overhaul of a lot of things. It's hard to pick and choose, because I think we have a whole new profile window, which isn't in the live viewers yet. The new profile window is going to be really nice. We've got some new snapshot features. The whole snapshot interface has been redone. We've got, yeah, we're planning for some new camera improvements. I know have been a frequent request. So we have a plan in place for adding quite a few new camera features, especially in terms of options to let you really adjust how your camera functions specifically in the viewer. I mean, right now we have a variety of camera features, but everybody has the same camera features and it works one way, and and you just have to work with it that way. So we want to add a new camera control tab into the settings and really let you pick and choose the kind of camera features you want and the ways you want it to work, and also increase like the cinematic nature of the camera, I guess is a good way to put it. We want cameras to move around in a more fluid fashion, in addition to having more features and more control over them. We have a question about changing the thing, invite for peoples, like not a big circle. I'm not sure what that's referring to. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll check on the invites. Apparently it's been fixed already, but it's again in the unreleased viewer, which we're hoping to release very soon. We are waiting on a couple of fixes for that. One is the terrain system that Adam was referring to, and we also are pending a fix from Unity themselves for an issue that we're having. So once we have both of those in our hands, we should be about ready to kick out the 2B viewer. And I think it's worth mentioning that the 2B viewer, once we are happy with it and stabilized, is going to become a mandatory viewer update. We will be having a transition period between the 1B, the current live viewers, and the 2B viewers. But at some point we will be insisting that everybody move up to the 2B viewers, which is based on a newer version of Unity. Age verification and adult locking on regions. We have talked about adult verification. The difficulty with adult verification systems is it varies quite a lot from country to country, and none of them are particularly robust. There's a lot of ways to get around adult verification. So if even if we have a verification in process, in place, and you lock a region down to saying I only want people who've been verified in here, there's still no guarantee that the people coming in actually are adults. Make chat button act consistently with community friends, etc. buttons. I think we have done that now, or at least that's something we were looking at, was making the X button close the chat window instead of closing individual chat tabs. That's definitely confusing and should not work that way, especially some tabs, once you close them, they're hard to get back. So yeah, I think we fixed that already, and if not, it will be fixed before it gets released. Michelle's telling me that she has tested it and it has been fixed. Yeah, that is something we were discussing a couple weeks ago, actually. Ever be able to change the blue-pink colors of the UI to something of our choosing? Actually, this is something that we are also talking about. This is something that's come up in previous town halls. We do have the ability in the viewer to kind of, on a broad paint, change the colors of various UI elements. There's a lot of standardized elements. We have our own our own UI system in place that manages those things. And it is something we would like to expose to users to customize at their choosing. We would also like to add a default dark mode to the viewer, where you can just press a button and switch back and forth between a day mode and a night mode. But even with those switches in place, we would like to give users the ability to specify, oh, this pink, I want it orange instead, and this blue, I want it, gray instead, whatever it is that you prefer. Uh, do we? Yeah, we could have a pop up in the viewer that that does that. But we actually have Adam's been talking about a plan that he has in place that kind of makes more sense than having that pop up in the viewer. It's a little bit of a longer term plan, but we would like to build a Sinespace launcher that you launch that, and it would give you the option of, first of all, being able to chat without having the full viewer open. That is something that we're really interested in. You can kind of do that right now with third-party programs, but it's not the best experience, and it's not the most intuitive experience. So we would like to implement our own ability to have a chat window open without having to actually have the full viewer open. And part of that will be a generalized launcher updater program that runs separately. And from there, you could even do things like, pick the grid that you want to log into if you have multiple grids that you visit, and then to have that sort of thing launched automatically for you instead of having a bunch of different icons for a bunch of different viewers that are all configured slightly differently. That was probably where it would make the most sense to have an indication of, hey, before you actually start the full Sinespace experience, there's an update to download. We might even be able to build an updater into it. Yeah, we are 16 plus is the current setup. We're not we don't we have places that children can go with approval, but those are not the main grid. Those are separate white label grids that are specifically set up for children, and none of them are public right now. They're for specific uses, such as school and classroom sorts of environments. But the main grid is 16 plus. So turning off the main UI, everything except the chat window. Um, in theory, that's doable. There's that's not as simple as it sounds, because of the way the windowing system works. It's something we can look at. In general, that kind of involves putting the chat system on its own separate canvas in Unity, and that is doable, but there's a lot of dependencies there, and there may be a lot of duplication of those dependencies, and there would have to be communication between multiple canvases there. It's something we can look at, but I think, like I said, we would really like to have the ability to, in general, just externalize the chat system, have the chat system running independently. So, like for example, I would love to be able to just drag the chat window onto my second monitor and not have it cluttering up my view on the primary monitor in the first place. So we would really, if we're going to make major overhauls in the way the chat system is represented and rendered in Sinespace, I think we would go ahead and focus on that idea that the chat can run independently of the main viewer. In terms of photography, bigger quality as possible. I guess it depends on what you mean by quality. Do you want like higher resolution photos? It is possible that we can allow for photos to be taken at a higher resolution than you normally run. That can be challenging for the computer, depending on the computer that's running on. But having extra size resolution, that might even be something we can accomplish with the dynamic resolution system that Adam was talking about. I don't know if it can go up as well as it can go down, but that's something we can investigate. Yeah, Reds, that's something I was just talking about, is the ability to move the chat window out of the viewer entirely. My chat here is coming in, I think, a little bit delayed, so I don't know if that's if you asked that before or after I was mentioning it, but yeah, not everyone has more than one monitor. But a lot of people do have multiple monitors, or they have monitors that are sufficiently large enough that they can make the Sinespace window take up a portion of it, and the chat window take up a different portion of it, especially extra wide monitors that are available now. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to have, you know, so if you got like a 21:9 monitor, for example, it's very easy to have Sinespace running in a window and then have chat running in a window beside it. That's something we would really would like to have at least the option to do. Yeah, and like I said, you can do that now to an extent using an external client, an XMPP client, if you are a creator on the grid, if you've uploaded items to the grid, then you have the ability to log into the chat independently of the Sinespace viewer. But like I said, it's not the greatest experience and doesn't have necessarily all the features that we would want it to have because we don't have control over those third-party clients. So we'd really like to build our own external chat program. Yeah, and I just to make sure that's on voice here for people, I'm being asked to clarify that when we say the main grid is PG-13, we don't mean that it's 13 years and older is allowed. We mean, the same way you would rate a movie as PG-13. That is the conduct and language level that we expect on the main grid, not the age limit. The age limit is still 16 plus. Yeah, I have two giant monitors myself, and it really always frustrates me when I can't make good use of both of them. But I tend to have like Skype and Discord and Slack and Hangouts and sometimes like Zoom and other things all running on the secondary monitor. So I have like an absolute menagerie of chat programs running over there. I'd like to be able to add the Sinespace window to it. Yeah, having a dedicated chat monitor is something that's a little bit difficult to explain sometimes. But when you've got four, five, six chat programs running that you have to keep an eye on full time, it's really useful to be able to just have them kind of arrayed out on a monitor by themselves and just watch everything flow in. Get a question from Mimi. Would like to ask if the main login page can move the settings icon to a more accessible location. The settings icon on the login page is a big pink button at the bottom right now. If that's, I know the settings icon in the main UI after you've logged in is a little bit subtle, and that's something maybe we should look at. Those icons in general are pretty subtle. I talked to people who didn't notice the voice icon down there that they had to turn on. Some of that has to do with UI scaling. On some monitors, the UI elements start off being much smaller than it really makes sense for them to be. And in the settings panel, there is a slider where you can adjust the overall size of the UI. So you can crank that up so everything is much bigger on your screen. But of course, that involves finding the settings icon in the first place. If the one on the login screen is not as obvious for people, then yeah, we can look at addressing that. Maybe the first time the viewers run, it can have an extra pop up with an arrow or something that's like, hey, if you need to adjust your settings, check this out over here. versus making a giant settings icon, just having some kind of introductory tutorial for first run of the viewer is something that wouldn't hurt to have for a lot of things, really. Yeah, and we do have somebody whose main task it is right now is looking at all of our UI UX, our user experience for the whole platform for all of the UI elements, and really figuring out what works and what doesn't, and coming up with plans for implementing changes to those so that we can have a much more friendly and fluid experience. And if something's just not working, then we absolutely want to change it. And he's telling me right now that is one of the things that they're looking at is updating the login screen so that those buttons are more obvious and harder to miss. So that is on our radar. Yeah, I don't think there's any such universally known thing as a PG-16 rating. If you said PG-16, nobody would probably really understand what that meant. PG-13 is pretty universally understood as a rating and conduct sort of situation. What you can expect from a movie or video game if it's PG-13 rated. Will there ever be an adult part of Sinespace for someone who wants to play adult music or venues? Any plans on that option in the future? We actually have an official policy statement coming out about adult content and what our involvement in adult content is. The short answer is that there will be no adult content on the main grid. The main grid, at least for the foreseeable future, is strictly PG-13. There will be no adult content on the main grid. However, that is the main grid. As some people may or may not be aware, we have the option for many other grids in Sinespace. We have many other grids. Many of them are not public because they're for specific uses, for enterprise, education, that sort of thing. But we actually adult content can be possible on those separate grids, and that is something that we can have a discussion about with people who are interested. There's some bars to clear there, and there's some oversight that would need to happen on that. But if you are interested in adult content, we should probably put together a discussion around that, specifically geared towards adult content, because there are a lot of issues and caveats there that we would have to go over. But the short answer is that absolutely not on the main grid. There will be no adult content on the main grid. Yeah. So, yeah. So, statues. We're talking about environmental decor. If you've got a classical statue of David or something out, that's not adult content. It's I understand it can be a bit of a fine line to walk there. Obviously, there is artistic nudity, which is different than what is normally considered adult content. Adult content is very much things that are specifically of a sexual nature, and those things are not allowed. Like, for example, our avatars. You can't walk around totally naked with your junk hanging out. Our avatars are designed so that at the very least you have to have the crotch and for girls you have to have the nipples covered. But yeah, if you've got an art gallery or a museum or things like that where there's artistic nudity in there, that is not a problem. We're specifically saying when we know adult content, we are discussing no sexual content on the main grid. Yeah, and like I said, I'm missing the last couple lines of chat here. So if there's anything, I feel like I'm getting questions after they've been asked. So I'm probably not going to pay attention to that part of the chat. Yeah, yeah. As Michelle's pointing out, everything that gets uploaded to the main grid, including like Greek statues and artistic nudity, still has to go through our review process. So if something gets uploaded and we look at that, and the statue of David, we're going to be, there's no issue with that. That's going to be fine. If you uploaded some sculpture that you made, that's like not a classical Greek sculpture or something, it would go through that review process, and it would be up to the reviewers to decide whether that's specifically of a sexual nature or of an artistic nature, and could kick it back to the uploader if there's a problem with it. But in general, we do not have a blanket ban on artistic nudity. And yeah, it seems I am getting my Sinespace has stopped responding, so I assume people can hear me on Twitch still, and I may have to restart my Sinespace here. Bear with me a second here, guys. Okay. And I'm back in. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I had a little bit of computer trouble there. What is it? The sky. Oh, the update, the ability to override the sky with your own custom sky settings. Yeah, that should be coming in this 2B viewer. You can actually download the staging viewer and give it a try if you want to. And if there's any issues with that, of course, feel free to report them. Is there any other questions that we can cover here? We're coming up on the hour. If there's some questions we can answer, I can continue to do so. Otherwise, we will wrap things up. So will there be DJ Salem asks, will there be a talk about the adult type grids? was thinking in just as explicit music nature, not just sexual nature. So I guess that's something you can have a talk with us about. If probably something we can connect on Skype and have a discussion about specifically what kind of music you want to play. I don't know that if you're talking about sexually explicit music, or if you're just talking about like violent music, then yeah, we can have a discussion about music types. I didn't even notice that Stroker Serpentine was here. Yeah, as far as the adult grid type stuff, we're really, like I said, aiming to keep the sexual stuff off of the main grid onto a private grid, but we actually have some people working on such a grid that we'll probably be discussing more in the future. It's not something that we are officially working on, but we do have somebody who is working on a private grid of that nature. When it's further along, I'm sure there will be various announcements about it from the people involved. Yeah, we don't necessarily want to have force you to have a grid where people have to go just to hear a music concert or something. But yeah, get in touch with us specifically about the music, and we can go over that. Yeah, we should. Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have a place where people can post questions ahead of time. Might be worth making us a specific channel on Discord where people can post questions, and then we can just have a repository of questions that we can run through as well, in addition to taking the live questions. Yeah, and anyone who wants to try the new viewer, you're always, of course, welcome to do that. It is available on our staging download. We actually, I think, just had a new one come out last night, so I'm eager to try that one myself. So that's going to be staging.sign.space/download if you want to get a early look at the 2B viewer. Yeah, really, the more people who want to try the staging viewer, which currently 2B30, the better, because any sort of testing helps us with feedback. If you encounter issues with it, then we absolutely want to know about those issues, because the more testing we can get done on it before it goes live, then the more issues we can iron out. Okay, guys. I guess we don't have a new question coming in at the moment, so going to I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here for today, and we will make this a regular thing. There'll be office hours at least once a month. If we need special office hours for specific issues, we can arrange to do that as well. But same time, same day, probably every month. That is on Wednesdays at this time. I don't know if it'll necessarily be on the 4th every month. Probably not. And this is the first week of March, so that probably makes sense to just continue doing it on the first week. We'll probably try to have the next one on the 1st of April. That'll be a fun one. I promise all of the answers on that day will be accurate. Yep. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're gonna go ahead and turn off the stream now, and look for announcements in Discord and on Facebook for next month, and we will post a link where you can put all the questions you want ahead of time, and we will just we'll go through them as much as we can next month. Take care, everyone.